Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was just demolishing a Mars bar, so that's why it took a bit longer, but the Audi version. Anyway, welcome to the Grid Talk podcast. My name's David Whitehouse. I am your podcast presenter, and as always, we do have. I'm going to go that way this time. Wajid on the show. There he is. We will unmute him. There we go. How are you, Wajid?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
I'm very good. We had a good Grand Prix.
It was a good Grand Prix. It's funny, Canada and a bit of rain, and look what happens.
A couple of groundhogs as well.
Well, and according to Jacques Villeneuve, people who don't deserve to be on the grid, but you know.
Well, we'll get on to that very, very shortly. But first up, welcome to everybody into the chat. If you are there on Twitch or YouTube, thank you for joining us. I know iRacing is currently in downtime, so I hope you've all come over here to watch what we think of the Canadian Grand Prix. If you haven't,
sorry, has the new update not been uploaded yet?
It's just they always add a little tweaks and that just before the season is over. Talking about little tweaks, we're going to move straight on to one topic, which this is before the Grand Prix, so we're going to move on to this topic straight away. This is going to be the 25 driver market. Now, Wajid's like, I didn't think you were going to say that one then, did you? We had some announcements this weekend. The 25 driver market is now kind of taking shape. We've only really got, I'd say, one top drive available in Formula One now. Whether you call that top drive or whether you call that a Kimi Antonelli's son seat, that's possibly what it is, you know. We had, just to update everybody, we had Perez, who signed a 1 year option at Red Bull. We had Yuki Tsunoda announced at RB for another year, part of furniture these days. And we had basically the doors shutting on Esteban Ocon at Alpine, not to do with the Monaco moment, apparently. First of all, just taking those three out as themselves, Wajid, what do you think of each of them deals?
Checo doesn't deserve the seat. Yuki probably couldn't get another. Honda probably couldn't get a seat at Aston for Yuki. And the writing was on the wall for Esteban. It'd been on the wall for a long time.
Yeah, I think it was so much on the wall for so long it was in hieroglyphics. But it's really been Aston. We'll start with the Esteban Ocon one because that's the one where we don't know where he's going. I think it's pretty clear where he's going next after talks this weekend. But Ocon never really got on with Gasly. You heard the comments from Gasly in the press conference, you know, saying it's never been easy. I think on pace alone, Esteban Ocon deserves to be in Formula One. If on outright pace. But in terms of how he deals with the team, deals with teammates, which we'll definitely go on to with another driver later on. Does he deserve one more chance in Formula One? Because he's never had, even though he's had that Mercedes link, he's never really had that one chance.
But he's never done anything to deserve the chance. Thing is, right, so everyone knew George Russell was lined up for the Mercedes seat and whatever. But you can say what you want about Nicholas Latifi. George Russell went into that Williams, dragged that Williams, got that second place out of Belgium with that Williams. Let's not forget, when he was in Williams, he dragged that car to places that it did not deserve to be. Esteban Ocon was always in a quicker car than George Russell, and he's never comprehensively beaten a teammate. You know, like we had this conversation last week. Danny Rick, I think overall beat him during his time at Renault. It's been fairly close between him and Gasly during their time. I think Alonso, he was there or thereabouts, but Alonso, everyone was raving about Alonso's performances at Alpine, even though Ocon got the win again with a massive assist from Alonso, to be perfectly honest, and some fairly outrageous driving because that black Mercedes was on the charge. I think Ocon's lucky that the F2 / Formula E / IndyCar market, in my opinion, the current crop of drivers, there's no one really good enough to replace him. Maybe Drugovich deserves a chance, but Drugovich can't even get in the Aston seat. That's why he's had to run off to Indy. So, I think he's lucky. I think he's lucky there's no sort of up and coming drivers aside from Antonelli, which I still don't know where the hype for Antonelli's come from. Has come from, sorry, but yeah, he's lucky, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, he's had these connections, but never really made anything of them. In terms of the whole Esteban Ocon situation, he obviously we'll get onto him and Gasly this weekend in a bit when we go into the Grand Prix, but it sounds very much like he's been having talks with Haas. The big rumour is that Ollie Behrman is already going there. I mean, I think to me that was probably confirmed in Saudi. As soon as they knew he could drive an F1 car, it was pretty much confirmed because of the amount of free practices he was getting this season. You don't give a driver 8 free practices if you're not going to think about signing him. Behrman in there. Let's put Ocon alongside. Do I dare say it's probably one of the best teams Haas would have ever had in terms of outright pace? Ocon gets a completely new start. Behrman, we know, is quick.
How many races to Ocon bins it or drives it to Behrman?
True, but what's your other choices? If you're Haas,
just go to Ferrari and go, do you need someone else to go into the development scheme?
Well, unfortunately, Ferrari have got rid of most of the people they could have put in, which I will get onto in a minute in my little brain idea. Because realistically, we need to do a proper 2025 video. But we'll move on.
Summer break content.
Yeah, but at this rate, it's going to be done by the summer break. We'll be getting one seat. And it's not going to be the Williams seat for once. Not in my mind, anyway. Perez, safe choice.
Doesn't deserve it.
I'm not saying he deserves it on his performances, and especially this weekend. Which I will say he's been very unfair with the FIA, but we'll move on to that in a minute. In terms of Perez, I'm not saying he deserves it, but Red Bull have a driver who's not going to upset Max. He's going to move out of the way when he's told to. He's bringing in a huge amount of budget through Carlos Slim, etc. Sells merchandise like it's no tomorrow. In a budget cap era as well. If Verstappen isn't going to win, there's a chance. Perez knows how to win Grand Prix. So if the car is dominant and Verstappen retires, Perez is probably going to pick up the win. Probably. I know the last few Grand Prix haven't proved that, but it's just the way it seems to look. And then we've got, obviously, the internal politics, And we've always said, Marco and Verstappen's go hand in hand. Jos has quite a bit of power in the team in terms of who does what without actually owning any of it. Let's say Max Verstappen does leave for Mercedes, even if it's in a couple of years. Sergio Perez being there gives you that stability of somebody as a benchmark.
You also can't drag the car to wins the same way Max Verstappen can on weekends like this when the car probably doesn't deserve to win. You make the least amount of mistakes. you need a driver that doesn't make mistakes. When your driver is 45 seconds to 50 seconds behind every single weekend, and then it with a bit of rain bins it every 5 minutes. And bear in mind, Canada's a street track as well, technically.
True. Yeah.
So no, I think he's right. I think all that goodwill he made at Racing Point when the Pink Panther was quicker than it was when it was quick and it was under the radar. That's his level. Let the man get his win at Mexico, and because he's never going to chance for a world title ever. He's for all the conversations people have had about Lewis's teammates and how they've not been good enough. Perez is the worst team. Perez is a much worse teammate than Lewis Hamilton has ever had.
Eki Kovalainen?
No, he's better. He's worse than Heikki.
Interesting. The final move we said was
Sonoda.
Sonoda for re-signing for RB. It's a difficult one for me. I mean, I can see it, but when they had that interview on Sky Sports with Christian Horner, he turned around and said, for the second seat, and I was like, hang on a minute. But he never mentioned, until he was pushed to it, he never mentioned Liam Lawson. He mentioned Hadjar and he mentioned Danny Rick. Can we take this as Liam Lawson is not getting an RB drive?
Let's say this as Liam Lawson. You need to leave the Red Bull family to try and get a Formula One drive.
Yeah. No, I saw it straight away. Even before they'd said, oh, Yuki's got the second seat, I was like, why have you not mentioned Liam? He's sitting there. He's on camera most of the time. But you've mentioned Hadjar, who is 2 points off the championship lead in Formula 2, doing very well this year, don't get me wrong. And I don't want this to sound wrong, but when was the last really good, and I mean really good, French driver that's gone through? You're probably looking Prost, a Lacey.
I don't. We're not putting Prost and Lacey in that same bracket. Sorry.
Well, no, but ones who can win races, and a Lacey could win races. I know he only won one, but he should have had a lot more. Be honest. Running out of fuel in Australia didn't help. And Olivier Panis was a handy Frenchman as a driver. I know we got Leclerc, who's Monegasque French, whatever you want to call it, but French drivers aren't exactly the most successful in Formula One. And is Hadjar the next one to come along and be that successful?
No, because I had more hype around Pierre Gasly than I had around Hadjar. Yeah. Gasly was the one before he got that Red Bull seat.
Yeah.
You know, this is a future world champion. He was as quick as Leclerc. And I know we've talked about this, that he might have lost a tenth or two since the Antoine Hubert accident. I'm not sympathetic because you're still in a privileged situation. If it's not for you, then get off the grid. So I don't see Hadjar. I don't see Hadjar as that, because even still, I don't even think the F2 class this year is particularly strong.
No.
So, you know, cool. You win an F2, and I am yet to see. I'm yet to see, since sort of the Lando, Albon, George Russell class, anyone from F2 afterwards translate that. And even with Albon and George Russell, there was a year or two of embedding and getting themselves in. I still maintain Lando's probably the best out of the three at this moment in time. Excuse me. But we've not had a class like that since then. And even before that, I can't really remember. Excuse me. I can't remember an F2 class that was like, yeah, look at this.
Yeah.
So no, I think it should be Lawson in the first seat, but whatever, we'll get to that.
Yeah, personally do think Lawson should be given a chance, but then I can also understand if they kept Yuki and Daniel, which obviously we'll get onto a little bit later on. So that's the 25 driver market. There's still a seat at Mercedes, a seat at Sauber, Calamilot. There's a seat at Williams, Carlos Sainz, most likely at this moment in time, because his seats are running out quickly. Haas have got 2 seats. Alpine have got technically 2 seats, but we expect probably Pierre Gasly will stay on for continuity unless they sell it to Andretti. Is there any other seats available?
No.
I don't think there is. I think that, which is amazing at this time of year.
Yeah, but we got tornado season at the start of the season.
Sorry, I've got it here. We've got 2 Alpine seats, 2 Haas seats, 1 Sauber Audi seat, 1 Mercedes seat, 1 RB seat, and 1 Williams seat.
Of course, yeah. Because officially Danny Rick's not signed.
And officially, we've got 1 Aston Martin seat. Because Lance Stroll is not officially signed up for 2025 just yet. I know we're not expecting that to change, but anyway.
Did you not see my face before? Did you not see my face before as you said that?
Yeah. Just looking in the Twitch chat, if you got opinions on this, throw them into the comments. We will look closely. Nice to see you. Surely Behrman is a lock-in at Haas. Yeah, it seems like he pretty much is. It's just down to contract talks and probably how much Ferrari are going to pay Haas in terms of engines for 2025. Moving on, though, we're going to go straight to the Grand Prix, and we're going to look at are Verstappen and Red Bull back? Pole position, win, but not as simple as that.
He wasn't on pole.
Sorry, he wasn't on pole.
He matched the time, but he wasn't on pole.
Yeah. I mean, straight away, I will tell you, before Sky, everybody had said it, I was jumping on that fact straight away. You know, it's the first decimal place pole position which has equaled since that famous Jerez 97.7, which somebody in the world does know the 4th decimal place of, but has been sworn to secrecy. So it's disappointing we'll never know that one. But what a Grand Prix that was, because I mean, they kept throwing out the stat, it's the closest top 6 since the 60s. I think that's what I want to say. And I was going, well, hang on, it's the closest top 4 since 1997, because Damon Hill and his plucky little arrows popped in just half a tenth behind the 3 who had equal time. So, you know, not always so good with your facts, are you, Formula One? Anyway.
No, Formula One didn't exist before Liberty Media took it over, don't you remember?
Fair point. Verstappen, Red Bull. We're not going to say Red Bull are back. Let me just turn around and shout to the back of the grid. All right, Sergio. Verstappen and Red Bull are back.
No, Sergio's back.
Well, Sergio was backwards. I've got a bit. We'll start with Sergio, actually. Terrible weekend on a weekend where he signed a new contract to stay for a year and a bit. It's so similar to last season, isn't it?
You say that's a terrible weekend. That's a Checo Perez weekend in the rain.
True.
He's got his contract. He was awful, and this time he didn't bin it into a heart. He didn't bin it into a horse. He binned it on the 10-5, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 10-5.
He. Do you mean in the race?
Yeah, in the race.
That is technically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's turn 8 technically.
Yeah, 10-5.
Because amazingly enough, that first bend is actually a corner.
Yeah. So normal Normal Checo behavior, normal service resume. Turn 69.
Yeah, not turn 69, Beaster. Welcome in.
So it's just normal Checo behavior. He's got his contract. He doesn't care now. He's never going to compete for the World Championship. I think we can all safely assume this man is never ever going to be world champion in this incarnation of the world. Maybe he might. Maybe if it started all over again, maybe he might win that one. Yeah, I think
Sergio Perez.
Maybe he dreams of being Max Verstappen. Nah, it's a typical Sergio weekend. Then him crying about the FIA was just pathetic.
I will say I fully back that Sergio should not have had a 3-place penalty for driving that car back to pits. Now, I know a lot of people will jump on it and go, "Oh well, safety and all that." But if you look at the safety implications first, that rear wing wasn't hanging off.
No,
it was broken, but it wasn't hanging off. There's one piece that flew off in the whole track, and he drove over half the track. It wasn't unsafe. He wasn't crabbing the car or anything. He was getting out of people's way. The FIA have got yet another decision wrong, which we will get onto again, surprisingly, every podcast.
Yeah, but he's going to qualify 18th next week anyway, so on the week after.
Well,
so
true.
What's the difference between 18th and 20th?
Well, normally when he's got a penalty, that's when he does qualify well, and then it gets put back into the back anyway.
All right. So look, okay, Joanne. Yeah, the FIA got it wrong. Fine, whatever. End of the day to still go. Oh well, I don't deserve this. You were pathetic all weekend.
Oh yeah, he deserves it for his performance.
Yeah,
he
so
deserves a 3-place penalty for his performance.
And to be honest, sorry. And to be honest, unpopular opinion, I think he's lucky he didn't get a penalty for causing the crash in Monaco. To be perfectly honest.
Yes, true.
So it all weighs it. So the two wrong decisions the FIA have made, they've evened out anyway.
You mean like GP said to Max, "That's back for Miami." Which obviously shows Verstappen and Red Bull have still been talking about Miami, even though they finished second, even though they're still dominating the championship. Typical Red Bull. But no, in terms of Perez, don't think he should have got a penalty. Very similar. I mean, let's put it this way. A Red Bull can do that accident and come out of it alive. Sebastian Vettel did exactly the same thing in 2011.
He didn't
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the difference. He controlled it. Perez didn't. Maybe we need to get a clip of both and make a short of that.
Yeah, but
this is how it should be done. This is how Perez does it.
Yeah, but one went on to win his 3rd world title in a row, and the other is 7th, 8th.
Yeah, it was his 2nd world championship in a row, actually.
2000. Oh yeah, of course. His first one was 09. Yeah, apologies. Sorry, 10. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah.
I just realised I hadn't put the results up along the bottom, so nobody knows what we're actually talking about. Anyway,
well, that result's also wrong because you've got Charles Leclerc as first.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's because I did. What it is because I copy and paste to quick speed it up. That's the one bit I actually copied rather than cut. So let's get rid of that. There we go. Happy.
There we go.
Is that better?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, he was so far behind, he may as well have been in first. But anyway, Verstappen, Red Bull themselves, right? They're back. We didn't really go away. I mean, obviously they won in Imola, but still the car had its issues and he had to fight for it. Is this, again, Circuit Pacific, and we'll go to Spain and we'll go to Red Bull and see 30-second dominance? Or are we seeing McLaren and, well, a little bit Ferrari and a little bit Mercedes, depending on the circuit, are back?
I think they made the least amount of mistakes this weekend, and that's why they won. I think that's literally what it comes. I think that's what it literally comes down to.
Yeah.
We'll get to Lando and the safety car in the 11 seconds, but I literally think it was a case. I just literally think it was a case of Max and Red Bull made the least amount of mistakes this weekend because they had no right to win this race this weekend at all. But that's what you get when you've been the most dominant team. You pluck all the best people. You like literally drill pause about standards. This is what you get. It's a well-oiled machine. Max did what he had to do in the race, got to 2-3 seconds, maintained that 2-3 seconds, and I think he had the wrong Mercedes powered in cars behind him, and that's literally where it came. That's literally where it came down to. I don't think it's a case of they're back or they're gone. They just made the least amount of mistakes, but that's what secures you world championships. That's what now puts him an extra 25 points ahead of everyone. Charles Leclerc. So, yeah, I don't think it's a case of Red Bull back, Verstappen back. They just made the least amount of mistakes this weekend, and that's what this weekend was all about.
Nice segue, which, to be fair, you didn't know was coming.
I had no idea. I had no idea.
McLaren, Mercedes, both of them very quick this weekend. I think Mercedes very track specific. A lot to do with the green track. This Mercedes seems to love a brand new track, an early track, a Friday track, as we should call it. As soon as it rubbers in, they don't really like it, but no chance of it rubbering in this weekend with the amount of rain we had. I mean, I'm surprised we didn't get a safety car start, to be honest. So, FIA, you got something right. McLaren, Mercedes. We'll start with McLaren. We'll start with Lando. Mega quick again, but slow starts to each stint, and he keeps doing this. We mentioned it before. He would have won in Imola if he just got on with it, and I know that probably helps the tyres, but do we just think that, I mean, if he hadn't had that slow start and he'd had an even bigger lead, he would have pitted for that safety car?
But this is where you kind of mentioned it off camera. This is where I agree with you, though. You're 11 seconds up the road. You know, typically while Logan Sargent's Williams has stopped,
and how much damage,
more than likely it was going to be a safety car anyway. Even if you take the gamble and no one else behind you pitted, you were on a fresh set of boots. Anyway. So and they were quick, and they were generally the quickest car on the track at the time. So I don't even think it would have been that much of an issue. Do
you think McLaren maybe looked at Miami too much there, where they obviously beat the safety car to safety car line 2, so that they got ahead of it and could go at a quicker pace, whereas in Canada they didn't beat the safety car out. So when they caught it by the hairpin, they were actually going to lose time.
I think McLaren still have loser mentality.
So what we discussed with, let's go back to about 2020 with Red Bull, where they would be in a position to win a race if they just did what Mercedes did, but what they did instead is something different because they felt they had to.
Yeah, I think McLaren are so happy about where they are and happy to be in the position they are. They're not in a position. They're not in a position where they take risks for wins / potential championships. It's more safety. It's like sort of like the precautionary approach. Sort of Aston and Fernando. Monaco last year. Was it last year? Yeah, Monaco last year. It's a case of Red Bull being ruthless in the position they are, and the teams around them are either dropping stinkers or they're too precautionary for their own good, which is then costing them later on. I know everyone says, "Oh well, track position's king," but in Canada that's not the case. Given the length of that back straight in Canada is a Monaco. Track position isn't king in Canada, and the FIA wanted the DRS open at any chance they got. Half the track was still wet. The FIA went, "It's totally fine. Where the DRS, open the DRS, go for it." So I just take the risk, take the gamble. Like, what have you got to lose?
Going back to 2011 again, which I mean, obviously everyone does when we speak about Canada. They did the same there. Half a wet track, and that allowed Schumacher to hold a lot of people up for a while, including Jenson Button. But as that dry line sort of filtered out, it made it harder and harder to sort of block people off. McLaren, we talked about Lando. We'll talk about Oscar as well. Yet again, is it Oscar's tyre wear that's let him down again?
Yeah, and driving as close as possible to Lando for as many laps as he did. Don't know why. Just stayed 8, 9 tenths out. You know what these cars are like. However, I will say I think he got incredibly lucky he wasn't taken out with 3 laps to go by a reckless Mercedes driver, which I think is a team we should now get into given the state of the weekend. People are going to think we've got some massive like Lewis love and Lewis bias, but there's just too many things going on at Mercedes to not make it to watch this relationship. To not question, because the way this relationship is deteriorating, falling apart, is, I mean, it's a little bit sad to be honest, because I feel like if this was Schumacher, Ferrari, he'd have got so much more respect than the way Lewis is getting at Mercedes at this moment in time.
I've got something to throw in right at the very end of this little bit where we talk about Mercedes, but what we'll do, I'll keep it to myself just now. Yeah. In terms of Mercedes, right, we had a weekend, they stuck it on pole. Granted, a very helpful tow by Alex Albon that came in. Karen Chandok on the SkyPad showed that was the reason he was able to match Max Verstappen. But then Lewis said this in Monaco. I will always be a couple of tenths short of George in qualifying, and we're thinking, yeah, all right, Lewis, yeah, whatever. And this weekend, I specifically watched for it. And as soon as qualifying started, he was 1.5 tenths, 2 tenths away from George Russell.
Bear in mind, 4 hours before, he was by far and away the quickest car on the track.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he was untouchable in P3. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's fine. And they're not. I mean, as I say, I know one of the Mercedes personnel on the car. He works on George Russell's. He's worked on Lewis Hamilton's before. He was part of a swap between Nico and Lewis. But I know sort of that most of the staff are the same as him in terms of mindset, in terms of winning mindset. They're not going to jeopardize a car. They're not going to suddenly stick a slower part on a car or whatever. Yes, George will get the updates, and Lewis knows that. That's obvious. Somebody's announced he's leaving the team. You're going to give your driver for 2025 the updates. No doubt about it. You'll leave Lewis out of little meetings about next year's car and this year's updates. Yeah, going to happen. Carlos Sainz will be having it at Ferrari as well. But that doesn't equate for all of a sudden just pace just dropping off between 2 sessions. Now, Lewis has come out with one of the interviews and said something about the tyre temperatures before he comes out. Now, I'm not saying that's a jeopardy thing, Mercedes aren't doing something on purpose, but is it maybe the case that just his tyres come out of the blankets before George's do, in terms of coming off the trolley? And that what makes him a couple of degrees cooler?
But he has come out and categorically said that the tire blankets were set 1 or 2 degrees lower than what they were in practice.
Yeah,
that's what he said. And those tire blankets, if it's true, like this is all speculation. This is all like,
of course.
right. If it is true, those tire blankets are just like everything in Formula One. They're all controlled by computers. They're all contested, and there's no chance in hell Lewis Hamilton wouldn't have said, "Can you put the tire pressures and tire temperatures up for the next lap?" So, or to be wrong, if this is true, to be wrong every single time is
it's a huge issue Mercedes would have to look at.
Yeah, and then let's get to the race where your teammate has had a stinker, like to be put on pole in potentially the quickest car in the weekend. He's had a stinker. He's then nearly taken himself and another competitor out with 3 laps to go. You've overtaken him, fine, whatever. To then be so, I don't know, focused on, oh well, you guys are racing, let's not hold position. To be so focused on overtaking your teammate by going to the wet side of the track, potentially cooling the tires, potentially losing it after you've had the stinker, and to go off, celebrate, all this, all that. It just reeks at the moment. And the irony, and the thing is, the irony is that George Russell came out and he said, I had to look at Lewis's data to see why I was so far behind. So even after all this, it's still because of Lewis's work that George managed to set the car up to where he wanted, because he was so far behind Lewis anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I will put it this way: out of the whole weekend as a whole, I do think the results in terms of George being third, Lewis being fourth, is reasonable. It's like it's not wrong that George, but for myself, like Lewis, he made a huge mistake. I mean, he lost, I think it was 3 or 4 seconds behind Joe when he come out the pits, because Joe didn't want to get off the dry line onto a wet line.
Yeah, but he was getting lapped.
I understand, but if you're just trying to hold on to a car which has just had brand new tires on that have got wet, it's not the easiest to just jump out of the way. So, and then also I think Lewis made a 3 or 4 second mistake. I believe it was at the chicane before the hairpin, but he dropped about 7 seconds back and then had to regain some time.
He also made a mistake behind Fernando as well, from what I remember. But he was
too busy fighting with Fernando for too long.
Because Fernando made the mistake where he cut across the chicane. He tried to overtake him into turn 1, and then he overshot it, and then he overshot it, and then he had to cut across. So I'm not saying it wasn't a clean race by Lewis at all. No, not all. But just before you go, I again, like I saw that tweet that said, you can stick Lewis in P18, you can stick George Russell on pole, and they'll still end up together at the race at the end. And it's just so true, isn't it?
I just, for me, like even mistakes from George throughout the race, I was thinking, yeah, you've still driven pretty well. Then the idea that Oscar Piastri was just going to disappear in the final chicane. I mean, I woke up this morning expecting a penalty.
So did I.
But none came. I was like, now, if you put other people, I think that George Russell needs to go down to Woking now and say thank you. Because what happened was Zach Brown and Oscar Piastri were not on the radio shouting and raving and going, oh my God, we've got all this damage. They just got on with what they got. And Oscar has always been like that. He's been very team focused and doing that since he joined Formula One, because he's still only in his second year. If he had got on the radio and cried and shouted and everything, George Russell would not have been on that podium at the end of the race.
I thought about this as well, and I think it was because.
Don't say it was because he was Spanish.
Well, it might be that. I think it's because George Russell also ended up behind Lewis Hamilton from the mistake. You know, because it wasn't Piastri that went backwards.
Yes.
And it was Russell that went backwards. I also think that saved him as well. Not that it means anything. At the end of the day, you can potentially you can totally say that because of George, Oscar fell out of DRS. That's why Lewis caught him. Absolutely. But I also think that's what saved George Russell as well.
Yeah, I excuse me. I definitely think.
But there was no one near it. It was, but yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't a racing incident. Well, he's driven straight into the side of him.
I honestly I don't mind that not being a penalty. I don't mind it. I'm just going. This is what we said before with the inconsistency of the FIA. And I mean, it's like, for example, let's just take it another way. You see that and you get no penalty. But then you have forcing a driver wide sometimes is a penalty. So now let's swap them the other way round. And it's Oscar on the outside. And Oscar goes straight on. Sorry, Oscar keeps the corner, but the other car goes straight on. It's forcing the driver wide, but you can't force a driver narrower, shall we say. It's seeming not to be a penalty. So I honestly think they got that wrong. I think George Russell probably is breathing a heavy sigh of relief on his plane home from Canada. Fair play to Lewis, straight away into the interview. Yes, I drove he said it was his worst Grand Prix ever. I think he's slightly forgetting all the ones where he crashed into Felipe Massa. But him and Massa were pretty much glued together after that. I think it was 2010. 2011. Yeah.
I mean, you can say that 2010, the way it was glued to Massa, probably cost him a shot at that 2010 world title.
It definitely did. But what I will say is there's a few Grand Prix in there, but he drove a lot worse than he did this weekend. So Lewis, go back. I mean, I know you've got a lot of Grand Prix to go through, but go back through the history. There's definitely some worse ones.
Just quickly before we move on, who bottled it more this weekend, McLaren or Mercedes? Or Mercedes?
I think McLaren as a team bottled it more. But if you've got to put it on a driver, George Russell.
Interesting.
Because I don't think, Lando could have made the call, but the team can see everything. Lando can't. He didn't know what position Sargent was in when he got round to that part of the circuit. So once he saw it, he probably went, well, come on, it's obvious. But yeah, it's an interesting one. What I was going to throw to you at the end of this sector, I really wanted to throw this at you. We've seen the attitude of Mercedes. We've seen the attitude of George Russell. We've seen the attitude of Lewis Hamilton this season. Also to throw out there that Mercedes have stopped Lewis Hamilton doing an interview with Belgium TV at the Belgian Grand Prix, apparently. Again, it's an apparent thing because of the criticism that Lewis has been throwing Mercedes' way about why George is quicker.
So do you say the Belgian Grand Prix?
At the Belgian Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton has been stopped from doing a one-on-one interview because of that, and also the publicity he will give to Ferrari.
As in the Belgian Grand Prix that's going to come, they've already banned him from doing an interview. Apparently. That's not until September, though, is it?
Yes, but by now teams will be trying to get their things in. But let's say how this relationship is breaking down so quickly, which we've got to remember a driver who took a huge risk from McLaren, which actually once you saw where McLaren went wasn't such a huge risk in the end, but went to Mercedes, brought them multiple world championships, multiple wins. Probably, maybe should have brought him one or two more as well. 2016, sorry, 2021 could have very easily been Lewis Hamilton titles as well.
Malaysia 2016, if anyone wants to see the turning point.
Yeah, exactly. But the treatment he's getting, or visibly is getting, and the way Carlos Sainz can't seem to decide what he wants to do next season, and that Sauber and Williams are struggling so much. Carlos Sainz brings a bit of, I think it's Estrella, or no, it's the other beer that sponsor him, isn't it? Galactic.
I don't know.
But I know you don't know.
Sorry.
But there's a beer sponsorship that goes with Carlos Sainz. Logan Sargent, I doubt, brings a huge lot into Williams. Could we see an early switch of Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari, Sainz to wherever he's going in 2025? We think it's going to be Williams. James Fowles has already stated there's some moves behind the scenes as well, Newey, that he can't announce yet. So what we got is Antonelli gets to the end of F2, jumps into the Mercedes to get used to it, which Mercedes have already stated that Antonelli is the future. They said, Toto Wolff said this to Carlos Sainz and to the press this weekend, which tells you one thing: George Russell number 63 is not the future of Mercedes in their eyes. Because why would you be telling us Antonelli's the future? George Russell is young enough to be there for the next 10 years. Why are you telling us Antonelli's the future? I think Toto's got a bit of a thing about Max Verstappen. Remember, Mercedes lost Max Verstappen to Red Bull. They're too scared they're going to do it again. But anyway, back to my theory. Antonelli jumps in Mercedes. Lewis goes to Ferrari. Sainz moves on to Williams, and Sargent out of a drive near the end of the season. We've seen it done before with drivers, but not this high profile, I don't think.
I saw that. That's literally, I think you've answered my question for me. The fallout of Lewis Hamilton not finishing at Mercedes, Mercedes don't want that backlash. Because LH is a cult. Just as much as the Max is, like, Lewis Hamilton fans are a cult. And, like, for Drive to Survive, I think it'd be amazing. I think it'd be the most watched Drive to Survive episode, the Lewis exchange and, the relationship falling apart. I just think from a pure marketing standpoint and a pure sort of reaction, F1 reaction, Mercedes won't do it.
You don't think Mercedes will do it?
Do you imagine? I just don't see it happening. It would be amazing, but I also think, why would you want a driver who's going to be in that car next year, who could potentially challenge your car next year, to get used to his surroundings early and not have to have an embedding period?
Okay, agreed. So let's throw it another way. Does Lewis Hamilton finish the season with Mercedes?
No.
I mean, I've got to say, we've seen this before. And I know what you're saying about sort of, there's a bit more of a social media backlash these days. But also, if you're watching in the chat on YouTube or Twitch, let us know what you think. Do you think Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton will finish the season together or not? The
way this relationship is falling apart, I didn't think it, because Toe kissed Lewis's ass from hell and high water and protect him at all costs. But the way this relationship has fallen apart in the last sort of 2 months, You said it. You said it. You said it earlier. You called it early in the season, and I'm agreeing more with you each week.
What did I say earlier in the season?
That
I don't have a very good memory.
That you see a scenario where Lewis Hamilton, like you throw this question out earlier, where you see a scenario where Lewis Hamilton doesn't finish at Mercedes, and I kind of scoffed at it then, but yeah, it's becoming more and more realistic.
I mean, the thing for Lewis is it's like you get towards the end of the season, is it worth you carrying on and driving for Mercedes, or do you get to quit and go drive around for Fiorano for the next 4 or 5 months? You know, I mean, Mercedes aren't going to release him in his contract till December anyway. There's no doubt about it. They're not going to be friendly and go, yeah, off you go, Lewis. I mean, it would be a huge turn up for the Bucks, and Sargent obviously under pressure already. Mercedes are pretty. I mean, we said before Mercedes have got a seat going, but Antonelli pretty much looks like he's going to be in there, whether he scores another pointed F2 or not. To be fair, which means I'm very surprised to not see him in somewhere like Spain getting the FP1. You know, why aren't we? That's the other thing. If you're going to stick Antonelli in the car next year, why are you not putting him in FP1 at any point at the moment? I know he will be, but at this moment in time.
Excuse me. I don't know either.
It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, we'll move on to a very short topic for this weekend. Where did the prancing horse go? It was more like a 3-legged donkey. I mean, it had a bit of pace in practice, but what happened in qualifying?
Oh, Ferrari.
Yeah, I did try and find that again, but...
Oh, Ferrari. Welcome back, boys. He had an engine... I had the engine in the back of Leclerc's car that just was not working all race, and he still went, do you know what?
You're saying that. You're saying it wasn't working. But then he come in to take the risk of putting slick tyres on, which fair play, I understand. I don't know why Haas didn't leave Hulkenberg out a bit longer and stick. I know he's losing a couple of seconds a lap, but do a couple more laps. He could have put slicks on. But then they reset the engine and it worked. Yeah. And Carlos Sainz absolutely nowhere throughout the race. And then did the typical online racing move of not holding your brakes.
Yeah, there should be a penalty coming his way for that.
I wouldn't be surprised if... Well, it's difficult because in them conditions, you know, if you spin on the racing line, you're just trying to get out of the way.
I get it, but there's been too many times where they've gone back and like the data fanboys have gone back and like, you know, analyze the data because they've got no girlfriends, no social life, and just live in their mother's basement. So for smaller things than the science issue, they'll monitor he didn't hit his brakes at 0.3 of a second when he should have done, and therefore I understand it's a race. I understand they're gonna say it's a racing incident. Fact of the matter is he spun it, put it straight back on the racing line, and he took out Albon. It's a penalty. Yeah, but they might not do it because he's Spanish.
It was a huge shame for Alex because he was having a really good race. Ferrari, where I think they'll be back in Spain. I don't think it's.
I just think it was a really, really, really bad weekend.
But that brings us to things where people had a really bad weekends. Our predictions. No, that's our race predictions. We'll bring up our qualifying predictions first. Yes. Let's have a look here. What have we got?
You did all right.
Qualifying prediction. 5th was Daniel Ricciardo. Yes, I was a race too early.
Sorry, no, you doing the race. Qualifying predictions for Canada. No, you reading out for Monaco.
Piastri fourth. Yes, got that one.
Hell,
You had at
That's-
least I only had. Oh no, I did have both Ferraris in the top 5. Oh well, that was a screw up. Lando Norris third. Thank you. Verstappen. Oh hello. I didn't realise I'd done so well.
I told you had a good qualifying.
That's pretty much the best I've ever done. Yourself, Norris, no. Clerk, no. Verstappen, no. Okay. Well, that's 3-0 to me. Moving on now, we will go on to our race results. I don't know why that banner's still up, so that can disappear. Race results. There we go. So I had a Norris win. You had a Hamilton win. Both of us, not too far away. Lando Norris second. Well, I had Leclerc second, so that's as far away as you can get.
I got Norris.
Yeah, you got Norris. Third, Lewis Hamilton. I should have been right. Leclerc third. Verstappen and Piastri, no. And Piastri in fifth, no. So, what's that? 3-1 to me?
3-1. Good weekend for you.
Well, yeah, I think if I go back to our spreadsheets from ages ago, I think it's possibly the most I ever scored, and that was out of 9. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is now out of 10.
Yeah, this is now out of 10 this time.
Oh, an awful one. Yeah, cool.
I was going to bring up new contracts equal crash, but Yuki and Perez have been covered in this one. So we're going to bring on, I hope Twitter is watching, because this is going to be fun. Why was Jacques Villeneuve correct?
All opinions are that of Motorsport Magpie and his alone.
Okay, we're going to start with the Stroll comments, because they were the less triggering, because there's a lot less of a fan base. No disrespect, Lance, it's true. The idea that Lance Stroll never wanted to become a race driver, I can see where JV's coming from, but you do not, if you're not motivated, you do not come 7th in a Grand Prix, which obviously Stroll went on to do, and only 6 seconds off Fernando Alonso at the end.
Yeah, but there was 2 safety cars.
Granted, Fernando Alonso was cruising around and having a jolly, because that's what Fernando does these days. If you watch, he gets into a position he thinks he can get to, doesn't think he can get any higher, and then decides he wants a huge gap to the car in front, just in case it's past the Maldonado, and he's going to get taken out. He literally treats the rear end of the car in front like it's Maldonado, stroke Kevin Magnussen, stroke Yuichi Ide.
Esteban Ocon.
Yeah, it's like he's got some kind of infection to it. But anyway, 7th place for Lance Stroll this weekend. Was JV right in saying he just, or is it just his personality that he's not this get up and go and yes, and because we've seen him get excited about results.
I think F1's broken him, because from what I remember, Lance Stroll's actually quite good in F2.
He never wasn't. Did F2.
I didn't know. Sorry.
He won F3.
That was it.
But,
sorry.
He was. I will add, he was with the top team, and obviously he probably had the most backing going into that team. And while F3 is an equal formula, you can always ask for the best of the parts.
He still won it.
Yeah, he still won it. You carry on with your point. I'll try and find out who was in there.
No, that's fine. So he won F3, and when he came to Williams in that in the blue and white Williams, who I forget who their main
2017 Martini.
They said the Martini Williams. He was actually like the performance he was putting in. People went, do you know what? Like there could be something. You don't get it. I know the Azerbaijan race was totally insane, but he finished third. He finished third in that race. He did beat Seb and Lewis at that race. And he only just got beaten by Bottas on the line, given the outright speed of the DRS and the Mercedes at the time. So everyone thought there was something about him, but I don't think it's a case of he didn't want to be an F1 driver. I just think F1 has just broken him.
I will throw in there when he won his championship in 2006. Sorry, 2016. Get it right. 2006. Christ. How old is he? He was first. Second was Maximilian Gunther, who we've seen in Formula E now. Third was George Russell. Fourth was Formula E leader Nick Cassidy. Callum Ilott was in there in sixth. Antoine Huber in eighth. Ben Barnicoat, who's over in GTs at this moment in time, in ninth. Guan Yu Zhou was 13th. I mean, obviously, this is relative to what teams are in and people like that. He raced against Jake Hughes, Ryan Tavita, Pedro Piquet, Nikita Mazepin. Okay, we're going a bit down the wrong way, but also ineligible for points. Lando Norris, Dan Tipton, and Alex Sims were in there, but it was a hugely successful year. But in his team, he had Cassidy, Ralph Aaron, and Max Gunther. So he had a huge, there was talent in that series. But we're not talking the strongest F3 field ever. For example, when we had Vettel and Hamilton together.
Excuse me. Beat George Russell, though.
Yeah, beat George Russell. But George Russell's teammates, just to let you know whether they got any further in Formula One, where's George Russell? So Russell's teammates at High Tech were Nikita Mazepin, so obviously learned all his driving from him, Ben Barnicoat and Alex Sims as a guest. So, there's a...
Says it's not that much better, basically.
I mean, Ben Barnicoat was very handy in a go-kart, I'll tell you that, but he's just not had the funding to go the right way about it. We're going to jump onto the one Twitter has been waiting for. Daniel Ricciardo. The quote from Jacques Villeneuve. Let me see if I can just find it exactly, because what I don't want to do is misquote poor Jacques, because obviously we know he'll be watching the show, and like everybody does from the Formula One paddock, always watching this. First, start off just to throw out there for everybody who.
Bonjour, Jacques. Bonjour, Jacques.
Yeah, just to throw in there what Jacques said. Basically, he said, "Why is Daniel Ricciardo in Formula One?"
Sorry, just before you read, the Sky Sports commentary team's face when he said it.
Oh yeah,
was a if after we go through it, after the show, obviously, if people want to go see the clip's on Twitter. Just watch the Sky Sports team face as he says it, and like how they tried to question him and their reaction
not
afterwards.
Even the best bit. The best bit was like when they're trying to think of the question afterwards. But he says, "Why is he in Formula One?" Obviously, when he started, he jumped into HRT, dominated teammates there, went to Red Bull and AlphaTauri or Taurus at the time, dominated teammates, beat Max Verstappen when he was 18 years old, only just coming into Formula One, and then it sort of fell apart. And whether Daniel Ricciardo is there because of who Daniel Ricciardo is, because of his personality, because of what he brings to a brand and stuff, or is he there because he can win and he's quick? I think Jacques, I'm just waiting for all replies on Twitter, he's right, but in a certain way. The problem with Jacques Villeneuve is the same as Eddie Irvine. He says things and he's actually pretty much spot on, but because he says it so bluntly, people take it far too wrongly, if you get what I mean. Daniel, he's a very quick driver, but it's like after qualifying, they're trying for the whole of the pre-race build-up, going, Jacques, Daniel's fifth on the grid. You know, I mean, look how well he's done. Look how quick he is. And Jacques standing there going, yeah, it's one qualifying session. You cannot. You've had one good race in Miami in the sprint and one good qualifying session. How can you? You know, you cannot justify anything and say an F1 driver is quick on that, because Lance Stroll took a pole position, and everybody wants Lance Stroll out of Formula One. So it's very, you know,
Lance Stroll should have won that race as well. To be honest,
yeah, he should have won that race. Yeah, exactly. But that's why I think JV is right. Daniel Ricciardo needs so much more from the rest of the season. He needs to keep going. I mean, look at the race. Jump start, completely correct. He was rolling. His tyres were rolling. It's FIA got that right. First time for anything. And then he's had an okay race. He got lucky the 5-second penalty could be served under a safety car, which I still never understand. And then he's managed to come home in a decent 8th place, probably the best the car could have got, you know, in those mixed conditions. Aston Martin were a little bit quicker than RB this weekend. So where is JV wrong? And we're talking about a guy who, you know, a lot of people forget about this because they remember his stint at Sauber, which still wasn't terrible, to be fair. But if I can just... if you've got anything to say on this, feel free while I'm finding Jack Villeneuve's race results out. Because I just want to make sure we got it right.
Do you mean the 1995 IndyCar champion?
Indy
500 winner, the 97 world champion, came to Formula One in his first season in 96 and finished second, albeit Damon was dominant that year. Not his fault that Williams decided to go with a Cosworth engine in 98.
No, it wasn't Cosworth. It was still a Renault.
Was it? I thought it was
I
thought the Mechachrome was a Cosworth engine.
No, it was still a Renault, because it was the same with Benetton in the Play Life. That was a Renault engine basically, but a year-old Renault engine basically.
Yeah, well, it's not his fault. They decided to go Mechachrome.
I mean, this is a driver who went to Japanese Formula 3, finished second straight off. Now, for those who don't know, back in the early 90s, the Japanese Formula 3 Championship was one of the best out there. You know, most people went off to that. Ralph Schumacher did, Eddie Irvine did, etc. Then he went to Toyota Atlantic, finished third in his first full season, went to the IndyCar World Series, which was kart at the time, just before the split. So not when the split was on. It was just before it. He won the title, 4 wins out of 17, 6 pole positions, dominated that. Then finished second in his first full season, almost winning his first Grand Prix. 97, he won the title after the title battle with Schumacher. I know people say, oh, well, Williams was a dominant car, but look at Heinz Alfredson. 1 win in that car, and that was at Imola, and he disappeared. Finished the season with half the points of Shaq. Then 98 was, dare I say, it was probably the best season Jacques ever drove. I know it sounds weird, but he drove that wheels off that Winfred Williams. Got a couple of podiums, Hungary and Hockenheim, I want to say. Drove really well that season, finished 5th in World Championship, 21 points. I mean, apologies. It says 21 points, but you're thinking, what? Yuki Tsunoda's got that many almost. But yes, 21 points, was 5th in World Championship, only down to 6th place. Yeah, it was Germany and Hockenheim. Then he was 4th, 5th or 6th for most of the rest of the season. So behind for 2 Ferraris and 2 McLarens. Then he went on the risk of a friend, Craig Pollock, to go to BAR. First season, still pretty quick. He was running third in the Spanish Grand Prix at first, but the car was just so unreliable as a new car. No points scored, even though they did claim they're going to win their first ever Grand Prix. Then he was 7th in the World Championship twice until 2002, that's when it started to go a little bit downhill. a lot of politics inside BAR at the time, and obviously going from a comfort of having your own manager as the team manager, like when Flavio was team manager at Renault with Alonso, it just didn't seem to work for Jacques Villeneuve. And then he had his free race stint at Renault, which was just a strange one. I don't know what was really going on there, but it got him the drive for Sauber, 14th and 15th in World Championship before he left Sauber, which allowed Robert Kubica to join. Since then, Le Mans, second place. He's driven NASCAR, Truck Series. He's driven FAA GTs. He's driven V8 supercars. He's driven World Rallycross. He's done He's done more IndyCar. He's done Porsche Carrera Cup. He was part of the Van Wall project, which obviously we've seen go a little bit downhill, etc. But I think he was more in there as a name to get sponsors on board, to be fair. And I think he was slightly used with that one because he didn't get the testing he deserved to for the car. So realistically, Jacques Villeneuve is a very, very handy driver and does know what he's talking about. But he's just very blunt, and people don't like blunt people.
Yeah, but we live in an era where you can't say anything you say on the internet it'll offend someone.
Well, me
being here has offended half of Reform UK in this country, so sorry about that, Dave.
Yeah, there's us cancelled. But no, in terms of Jacques Villeneuve, like, I don't get this. You should have the right. We've always said you have the right to give your opinion, whether you're right or wrong. It's an opinion. If you're offended, you're offended. So what? It hurts your feelings for 5 minutes. In most cases, just want to be clear with that. With this, JV just saying his opinion on Daniel Ricciardo's career. What harm has he?
Sky Sports was scared that Red Bull were gonna not interview again. That's what I guarantee it. They were scared that Christian Horner says we're not going to speak to Sky Sports.
Yeah, Christian seemed a bit iffy when he had his interview before a race with or just before qualifying with Jacques.
Yeah, because he was
like,
yeah, because that's half of Sky Sports coverage here in the UK. Sky Sports are the Formula One providers, but half of Sky Sports coverage is Christian Horner.
Yeah,
you'd think it's a Red Bull series, so
it's just a difficult one, isn't it? In terms of allowing somebody to have their opinion, but then if you don't like it, don't try and come up with a reason why it's not true.
So to go back to his point, we all sat here. You and I sat here last year and said that Red Bull seat is pretty much Danny Rick's. All he has to do is drive fairly sensibly, and he will be in that Red Bull seat in 2025.
Yeah,
Danny Rick has been thoroughly dominated by Yuki Tsunoda all season. No one wants that conversation. No one wants to have that conversation. But Yuki Tsunoda has beaten the brakes of Danny Rick all year. Even in Canada, even though Danny Rick qualified well, until Yuki binned it at the chicane after the DRS, Yuki was ahead of him. 5 seconds or not. It was I think it was Ocon. It was either Ocon or Magnus or whatever. Then Yuki, then Danny Rick. The only reason Danny Rick got past him was because Yuki binned it. Yuki was going to beat him in Canada as well. No one wants that conversation, but Jacques Villeneuve is correct.
I'm just going to clip that last bit.
That's fine.
Jacques Villeneuve is correct. I mean, how many views are we going to get on that? But yeah, no, I think it's true. I think, and Daniel, I think Jacques got another point right after Daniel's comment after qualifying, where he sort of jokingly said that chat shit and whatever else he said. It's like, I get he's trying to be funny, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't bother him, don't comment on it.
Why mention it?
Well, they brought it up. Sky Sport, Natalie, I think. No, not Natalie, the other one. Rachel was interviewing him. So it was brought up by them. Fair enough. But just comment on it and move on. It obviously rattled a few bones. Yes, Yuki was going to beat Daniel. But I still thought it was still a good drive by Daniel. Amazing rejoin there by Yuki Tsunoda as well. Peach, great one by Nico Hulkenberg. Reactions of a cat. But yeah, that was the. That's why I'm going to say we, because you said it as well. We think Jacques Villeneuve was right.
Any hate, just direct it to @burnout travel right here. There.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
I'd love the traffic. Instagram.
Yeah.
Thanks, sis.
Send any complaints about the show to Wajid and anything good to me. There we go. Because you don't have to reply to the good stuff. Wajid, that's the Canadian Grand Prix. It's been a little. Well, it's not actually been too long for a podcast of our size.
That's
it's
true.
Normally a little bit longer.
We're getting better.
Yeah, we are getting a lot better. Thank you for joining us yet again. Obviously, we will try and get some more stuff out there later on in the week. We've also got. I have a few ideas on what we're going to do in terms of just some little short videos so you can catch up on stuff on a weekend without watching full information. But I thought about it for 2 weeks, thought of doing it, and then ran out of time, e.g. had to do parenting things. But as was mentioned on the British Karting Championship stream the other day, you still wouldn't want a hairline like mine. Anyway.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, at least you've got a hairline.
I have hair, no matter hairline.
If I do that, you might start to see it. Wajid, thank you for joining us for this Canadian Grand Prix.
Thanks for having me as always, my friend.
Next time you definitely will see us is a Spanish Grand Prix preview. We might record it like we did last time because that kind of makes sense.
Well, just for everyone, that is the start of a triple. That is the start of a triple header. We go back to back to back.
Oh, you're gonna be sick of the sight of us. We're also going to, just for in case we don't get anything out the rest of this week. Remember, this weekend coming, Le Mans. The 24 hours is back. That's always a good one to watch. Looks like Porsche looking really strong, and from people I know and that, good luck to Callum Ilott over there in Jota with Will Stevens. Really strong car, won the Spa. I wouldn't be surprised if Sykes doesn't take that drive at Audi, if Callum Ilott is in that Sauber next season. But anyway, that's just a little clip you can all take and then throw it at me in a year's time going, Callum Ilott's driving minis around Thruxton. That will be it for the podcast. So we'll leave it there and we will see you very, very shortly. As always, we'll just check if anybody is. Do we actually have some viewership on to raid with on Twitch? We have one viewer, so a little pointless because it's probably just me. But we'll head off now, and we'll see you next time when we're going to talk more about Grand Prix and probably actually know our full 2025 grid by then, right it's going. But for now, thank you for joining us. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button for more, and also give us as much watch time as you can because it's going to help the channel out brilliantly. And also hit that like button. If you're on Twitch, please hit the follow button. And if you would like to sub, you obviously can. And all the money goes straight back into the stream and keeping that roof over our heads. But you can see Wajid's roof, not my roof. But we will see you very, very shortly. Goodbye. Why have I not? Why is it not stopped?
Right, and we're back. Welcome to
We're
the
back.
Spanish Grand Prix preview.
Yeah. Give us a second. For some reason, it's not stopped. Even though that car in the background was lovely sound effects, that read down brilliantly well with the timing of me bringing it up. But yeah, if this does work this time, goodbye.